Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone, question and answer time. Thank you everyone for submitting questions. Let's get to it. First question is from Mason Curie. Wrote, I was wondering how much capital did you start off when you started dealing? How long did it take you to get to where you are now? So it's sort of a tough question to answer because when I first decided to become a dealer, I had already been doing it part-time on the side here and there for a number of years, and I'd been a collector my entire life. So, you know, when I first decided to become a dealer in 2011, I didn't have a lot of money or cash available. I don't remember, I'm going to say like $1,000, something like that. But I had a lot of cards accumulated over the years, and I had been a savvy collector for a long time. So I had a lot of valuable cards that I was able to sell, and I could sort of get the ball rolling that way. From when I started, it took me about a year before I felt comfortable, like, hey, I'm confident that I can make a living doing this and be all right. And then, you know, it took me a few years after that before I was comfortable that I was going to that I could make a very nice living and enough to support a family and things like that. But you know, a lot of that had to do with the fact that I had been in cards my whole life, so just had accumulated a lot of knowledge over the years that was very helpful to sort of get that going. Cardman John wrote, I must have your thoughts on the SGC Mantle. What does it do for the label, having been the company that slabbed the greatest known example? Does that price draw in more to notice and enjoy the hobby, or another influx of flippers and treasure hunters trimming and polishing some of the greatest pieces of art in the world just to make a fast buck? And Jake Stowe asked a similar question. What are your thoughts on the mega roller sale, the 52 Mantle SGC 9.5? So I did a video on the 52 Mantle about a week ago or so, and yeah, I think it helps SGC a lot. It's not just that, it's the top 3 card sales, biggest card sales in history are now all in SGC holders, the Mantle and 2 Wagners. That's, you know, pretty impressive. You can no longer sort of say SGC is, you know, the distant third grading company, which maybe you could have said a few years ago. They're right there now, and you know, I think that helps their reputation quite a bit. In regards to, like, you know, bringing more people in, I think stories like that, the Mantle going for 12 million plus I think these are very positive stories for the hobby. I think a lot of people who know nothing about cards will hear about this and at least gravitate towards cards a little bit, find some interest, and I think, yeah, we're going to get some scumbags arriving as well, but I think the majority are going to be just, you know, people interested in the hobby more, and I think that's overall a good thing. Edmund wrote, do you ever sell cards at a loss, or do you hold until it sells for what you listed it for, hoping eventually someone will want it for the right price? So it's funny you asked that question. I actually have a video coming out in a couple of weeks, or a video I'm working on that'll be posting in a couple of weeks. Basically, the entire video deals with this question. You know, to answer your question in short, yes, I sell cards at a loss all the time. And I think it's a big mistake that a lot of people make in the hobby is they refuse to sell cards at a loss, even if it's in their best interest to do so. Hold on to cards way too long. You know, sometimes you buy a card and it just goes down in value. Other times you just overpay for a card, and that's just a mistake you made, or you got unlucky. And, you know, instead of sort of selling it and moving on, people will hold it for way too long and sort of, you know, dig the hole even deeper. So to answer your question, yes, all the time. Benjamin Smith wrote, when did manufacturers start making separate hobby and retail products? I don't know the exact year, but they definitely had retail and hobby products in the late 90s. I'm sure they did not in the early 90s. So somewhere in the 90s would be when it started, probably in the mid 90s. Rahman Muhammad 16 wrote, with the economy taking a hit and likely economic pain to continue, do you see further correlation in sports cards, or do you see a divergence with high end increasing and mid to low decreasing? If you had 10K, where would you put your money? Vintage, high-end legends, something else, or would you wait or even not put it into cards at all and put it into another investment like gold or stock market? Or would you do the sensible thing and buy a used Toyota Camry? Well, if you're looking to buy a new car, a used Toyota Camry, that's a quality, you know, value for your buck. But regarding your, you know, predicting the, you know, this isn't. I'm not the right person to ask. I have no idea how the economy is going to go, up or down. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even try to guess. You know, I have some money in the stock market, but it's all in very sort of safe stocks. You know, gold, yeah, I really don't know the values of these things or where they're going to go. I have a lot of money in sports cards, obviously, and you know, if I was investing in long term, I would invest in cards that have proven in the past to do well long term, and that's vintage, high grade, superstar, rookie. You know, a card that fits those 4 things. That's sort of the safest long-term bet, at least in the past, and that's where I put most of my, you know, long-term investing money, cards-wise. That's where I put it. Tony Farfan wrote, did you end up buying the collection of the 50s stuff at the Schaff show in Annandale, Virginia? So yeah, what Tony's referring to is I went to a small show in early August in Virginia, and I met up with a dealer there who was selling a really, really impressive vintage collection, mostly 50s stars, I guess some 60 stars too, but there were like 4 Clemente rookies. I mean, it was really, really nice stuff. We ultimately were a little too far off on price. His asking price wasn't, it was fine, or it was, wasn't crazy. It just was a little higher than I wanted to pay as a dealer looking to make a profit. But I did end up buying a bunch of vintage commons from him for, a few $1,000s. That worked out well. And yeah, I'm sure he's going to do, just fine on the collection. Like I said, it was really nice stuff. RG wrote, when selling on eBay or wherever, what dollar amount do you require a signature for delivery? Yeah, there's no like hard rule that I ever use, but I'd probably get signature confirmation on any package over a few $100s, that type of thing. Michael Brennan wrote, a question I have for you is, what is your way of identifying true vintage cards when they are raw and you were to buy them as is, not graded or slabbed? Yeah, so I wish I had a good answer here. I get asked this question a lot, and I don't have an answer other than it's just experience. Like, the more cards you've held in your hand and have touched and have felt, the quicker it becomes obvious which are fakes. Like, to the point where, even good fakes today are very obvious to me pretty much right away when I have to touch the card and feel it and look at it up close out of a case. It's very obvious, but I don't have like a 5-step way of doing that other than it's just experience. The more cards you've held, the easier it is. Next question is from David Bruno, who I think I've done maybe 5 deals with now at this point. I did one on this trip, so cool to hear from you, David. He wrote, what would you feel was your favorite or least favorite part of your trip? What was your favorite personal PC pickup and possibly favorite investment resale pickup from the trip? So basically, just the entire trip was awesome. The Dallas show was awesome. The National was awesome. All the small shows I hit were awesome. It was amazing how many people sent me packages through the mail. I went and looked at a bunch of, personal collections. That was amazing. Basically, it was just nonstop cards for 7 weeks, start to finish. So the entire thing was, amazing for me. The least favorite part of my trip, there's really not much. At one point I was kind of overwhelmed. I was trying to take on too many collections, and at one point I had just too many cards that I needed to sort before I was going to leave. So I had to cancel a number of appointments sort of in the mid and late part of my trip, which I guess would be the only thing I could even try to point to as a negative. Favorite personal PC pickup? Yeah, I didn't really get a whole lot of PC stuff on this trip. I was looking for a few specific cards at the National, but did not find them. I did get some stuff in some collections that were upgrades to cards I already had. Like, I had a Hall of Fame rookie and a 6, and the collection included a 7, so I replaced it that way. But nothing really of note. And then favorite investment resale pickups of the trip? Well, I got a couple of videos that are coming out about that, so I'll save that for then. RMH19722 wrote, I was wondering if you could discuss what to look for, watch out for if you have had any luck in Facebook groups. I'm in one for vintage cards and everyone seems really cool, but I've never talked to or bought anything from anyone. So I've actually never been in a Facebook group or never been involved in one, so I really don't have anything, any advice for you. If anyone watching, has strong experience or can give some good advice about Facebook groups, please leave it in the comments and I can pass it along. RinNeb77 wrote, my question is on grading unopened packs. I have a few unopened 89 Upper Deck baseball packs, and obviously the only hope is to pull a Griffey rookie and pray it grades a PSA 10. I asked this because I had a few unopened 88 Flea basketball packs I had been holding on to, and about a year ago, I decided to rip them open in search of cards like Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. After opening 5 packs, I failed to find any Jordans or Pippins, and the best card I pulled was a Dennis Rodman, but it was severely off-center and had a line through the card. So would it have been better to just get the packs graded and not take the chance? Are packs worth it to get graded? With the 89 Upper Deck, will they hold the same value raw, or should I rip them and pray? So opening packs is essentially never going to be good value for your dollar. Basically it's a lottery where you have to hit that big card, otherwise it's going to be a loss. The value in packs is the fun of it. It's fun. You don't know what you're going to get. It can be a thrill. Every once in a while you hit that big card, and it's very, very exciting. And so that's where the real value is in the fun, not sort of return on your investment. With 89 Upper Deck, there's 700 cards in the set. I don't know how many cards are in a pack, probably 15. So, you got to open 50 packs to, on average, get one King Griffey Jr. There's going to be one Griffey every 50 packs about. So you got to open more than a box worth to get a King Griffey Jr. on average. You can't just open 5 packs and expect to get a Griffey. And, even if you do get lucky and hit the Griffey, chances are it's not going to be, it's almost surely not going to be a PSA 10. And even PSA 9s are going to kind of be a long shot these days. So, there it is. It's really a lottery ticket. In terms of getting the packs graded, I went online. PSA 8s go for about $30, so you wouldn't recover your grading fees if you were to grade the packs. I didn't see any 9s or 10s of 89 Upper Deck packs sold or unsold, so I'm going to assume it's really hard to get a 9 or a 10 from PSA on an 89 Upper Deck pack. Probably not something I would advise. If you enjoy opening packs and you like the thrill of it, there's nothing wrong with opening the packs. That's probably, I don't know how many you have, but I might choose to do that. If you were truly just asking, how would you maximize your dollar with these cards, I would probably just say, sell the packs as is. Wax Pack wrote, what do you do with commons? I essentially donate all commons at this point. There's ways to sell them on, eBay or certain companies will buy them in bulk, but I just found it's not worth my time to do so. So I simply donate them. There's a children's hospital near where I usually am at on the East Coast, and I usually take them there. Danielle Shooping wrote, you should talk about the overvaluation of one-of-ones. Yeah, so I think one-of-ones are in a little bit of trouble long-term. There's just so many being put out these days. If you're not dealing with like a key one, like a Superfractor or like the Black Prism, I think it's the Black Prisms that are one-of-ones, or or a key rookie card. If it's just like a random one-of-one of like a fifth-year player, even if he's a star, I mean that player's just gonna have so many one-of-ones, and if there's not something special about it, it's just gonna kind of get lost in the shuffle. Kind of like the way Prism is putting out so many Prism parallels these days. You got the orange Prism and the pink Prism and the red Prism and the blue Prism and the silver Prism and the purple Prism, and individually they're all rare, but when you add it all up, they're not rare. So I think that kind of thing could happen with one-of-ones long term. Like if it's not a special one on a rookie or something, you could just sort of get diluted and lost in the shuffle. So yeah, I think maybe they're a little overvalued if you're thinking long term. Dean wrote, how do you post hundreds of cards into eBay quickly, or do you do it one at a time? How do you ship cards cheapest, like one card in a top loader in a bubble envelope? And besides eBay, how do you price a raw card? So eBay is not my main source of selling anymore. I think I have like 100 listings on eBay, but certainly not an amount where I need to bulk listing. At one point I had like something like 50,000 plus listings on eBay in 2018. Then I was using Beckett Marketplace. They had a feature where you could bulk list to eBay. It was awesome, but it was very expensive. It was a dealer thing you had to pay for. I don't remember, a few $1,000s a month type of thing. But I think there's bulk listing tools. I'm not familiar with them, but if anyone knows, please leave it in the comments below. How do you ship cards cheapest? Well, I'm in the Netherlands, so I don't have any cheap shipping options. The cheapest I can ship to the US is €30. There's nothing cheaper than that. But when I was in the US and I would ship a single card, I'll just put the card in a sleeve, a top loader, and a team bag, and then ship that in a bubble envelope, and that would get the job done. Besides eBay, how do you price a raw card? Yeah, eBay's the best way. I also use ComC a lot. Just see comc.com to see what people have listed their cards for and sort of use that as a gauge as well. Montana wrote, you briefly touched on the subject a couple months ago, but wondering if you could dive a little bit deeper on the debate of grading one-of-ones. My thought is there's no reason to grade a one-of-one unless it's perfect. They should be slabbed as authentic and only graded if it's a 9.5 or 10. Anything lower than that doesn't add value. It can only hurt value. It will always be a pop 1, so the grade is irrelevant unless it comes back mint. Yeah, so I understand that thought process regarding one-of-ones, but I just think the collecting landscape has just changed tremendously over the last number of years, and people just want their cards graded. It doesn't matter that it's a one-on-one or whatever. And by the way, I'm that way too. If I'm buying a card as a long-term investment, it's got to be graded. I'm not buying raw cards as long-term investments. I've just found that over time, it's the graded cards that have gone up in value over time. Likewise, if I want a card in my PC, it's got to be graded. Grading is not just a number grade. It actually does other things as well. It authenticates the card. It guarantees that the card is not trimmed or altered in any way. And it protects the card, which, it's easy to protect a card, but it also does that as well. And so I want all those things for my cards, long-term investment-wise, or for my PC, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So if you were looking to sell a one-of-one, if it's not graded, you're eliminating a lot of your potential buyers. So I think, if you're just talking value, it's going to make sense to grade the card, even if it's going to grade, a 6 or something. If there was a rare one-of-one Cal Ripken card that I wanted, I'd much rather have it be in a PSA 6 holder than be raw, and I'd even rather have it be in a PSA 6 holder than a PSA authentic holder. So I think that's sort of a very, very common thought process with collectors these days. Jeff Pitchford wrote, was wondering if you had thoughts of an update video on current baseball players who have a shot at the Hall of Fame. Was wondering if you thought those you picked as likely were still that, or if others had made the list. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea for a video. I actually had a lot of fun making that video probably over a year ago now at this point. I think I said in that video that Nolan Arenado and Manny Machado were two players I identified as sort of like undervalued, likely future Hall of Famers. And yeah, that probably still holds today. But yeah, if I did an updated one, I'm sure there would be some new names to look at. So yeah, that might be a fun video to make in the near future. Anthony wrote, you appear so stoic and your cool and collected demeanor is part of your great appeal in your videos. How do you keep so composed when you encounter a really good card deal? And of course, during the really bad encounters too. Everyone is so irrational here in the US with the uncertainty of gas prices, grocery costs, and overall unfriendliness between political parties. It just seems that a lot of people I know are on the edge emotionally every day. Perhaps your answer to this question might help a few of your viewers and achieve some of the inner peace that you display in every video. Thank you, Anthony, for your kind words. I'm not really sure how to answer, but I'm naturally an introvert. My emotions are, I do not wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm just naturally always had them inside. That doesn't mean I don't have them. They're just as strong as anyone else, but they just don't come pouring out the way they do of other people. I get just as excited as everyone else, but it just sort of stays inside. I don't know if that's part of it. I've always sort of been a naturally like big picture thinker. I am not a detail oriented person. A lot of people don't believe me when I say that because they say my videos are very detail oriented, but I'm just a big picture mentality. Like, so any one deal never bothers me. Like if it goes well or not, I know there's going to be another deal down the road. So I just sort of don't let it bother me. The political party thing you brought up is actually interesting. I was pretty into politics, not into it, but I followed daily when I lived in the States, and it was like you said, it got so ugly and mean, and both sides just killing each other, and actually moving to the Netherlands really helped because you just stop paying attention day to day, and there's so much anger there that is no longer a part of your day-to-day life, and it's really refreshing to not have all that anger around. And I it's weird to say, but I don't think I could ever go back to being interested in politics. I just find it to be so ugly that I think that's actually helped. I think being away from that has really helped me keep a calm and steady mindset. Tom Mayrant, who goes way back with the channel at this point, wrote, I was thankful to get a 1969 Topps Reggie Jackson rookie at a garage sale this summer, along with the Ryan and a yellow letter mantle. The Jackson has some wax stains on it. Would you recommend leaving it as is, or would you try removing the wax stains? I'm inclined to leave it alone, but still possibly get it graded. Tough decision with an iconic card. So I'm really just of the mentality that I don't try to fix cards in any way. I mean, if a card came out of a pack with a wax stain, then it's got a wax stain on it, and that's sort of it. There's I can think of an extreme example where a card just had this little black thing on it. It was like stuck to it, and I was able to scrape it off with my thumbnail. But beyond that, I wouldn't try to fix a card in that way. I know there are people who know how to get rid of wax stains, but it's just not something I would personally partake in. 69 Reggie Jackson is probably still worth getting graded regardless. PSA or SGC would both be great options. I'd probably choose SGC. They're probably going to be a little less harsh on a wax stain. R.A. Johns wrote, why are you there? Isn't there a lot of food shortages? So my wife got a great position here, a great job offer here. We decided to move here for 2 years. That was the original plan, to just come for 2 years and see how it goes. It's now been 3.5 years, and we really love it here. Still will probably move back at some point, but at the moment we're enjoying life here, quite a bit. Isn't there a lot of food shortages? Not sure what that's in reference to. No, there's no food shortages here. So we've got 4 questions that are all very similar. Chad Televic wrote, how do you get your purchases back home? Femdoc1000 wrote, do you ship your purchases in the U.S. back to your home in Holland, or do you manage your purchases remotely? Dustin Wissinger asked, I'm moving to Sweden in the coming months, and I'm interested how you still manage to collect living in Europe. Do you pay shipping from the U.S. to Europe and pay the high VAT? And James wrote, I watch all these videos and consistently wondering how in the world do you get collections to the Netherlands? I mean, do you ship everything? Have you ever lost anything? How expensive is that? Also, I guess there's no chance you check your luggage and carry-on, and your carry-on must have your high-end cards in it and not leave your site. So it's taken me a good 3.5 years to sort of figure out how to navigate being a card dealer living in Europe. But I got a system down now, and I do basically all my business while I'm in the U.S. When I take a trip to the U.S., which I do regularly, I basically split it up into thirds. The first third of the trip, I'm doing all my buying. That's when people ship me packages. That's when I go look at collections. If I'm going to go to a show, I try to schedule it on the first third of my trip. The second third is when I'm doing all my sorting, just going through all the cards that I've now bought and figuring out what I'm going to do with them. It's actually my favorite part of the trip, if you can believe it or not. But the third part of the trip is when I do all my selling. You know, I now have a network of buyers locally who I can sell bulk to. I ship a lot of cards off to auction houses. I send all my high-end stuff to vaults, to the vaults. I'm really happy that all the major companies now have vaults, as that's exactly what I need, being, you know, in Europe. And then I ship a lot of my, you know, mid-level stuff off to ComC. That they're also a vault company, become critical to my business. They you know, I can sort of manage all of my inventory from afar, all through these, you know, vault companies. And, you know, my PC cards are all here in the Netherlands with me, and I usually bring a suitcase or two with me on each trip as well. Notorious DUB asked, any stories on accidentally ruining cards? So I've definitely ruined my share of cards, but I don't think I've ever done like a really bad one where it's a really expensive card and I made a big boo-boo and damaged it, but at least nothing that's come into my mind off the top of my head. But I did drop like a 5,000 count box of dollar cards all over the street at one point. Traffic essentially had to stop for like 20 minutes while I cleaned it up, and a bunch of the cards got ruined, but it was nothing of major value. That was more just a funny story than a you know, big loss in value on the cards. Andrew Horing wrote, can you please share your thoughts on the recent controversy surrounding baseball card exchange and the 86 Fleer box at the National? It seems like a lot of folks in the community don't trust BBCE anymore. Yeah, so I saw that story and, you know, some of the videos made about it, and I saw their response. And yeah, for those who don't know, basically a box was opened at the National live on camera, an 86 Fleer basketball box, which is a, you know, a 6-figure box. The box was authenticated by Baseball Card Exchange. And when the box was open, there were some packs that had some cards that had like a weird correlation to it, and it appeared that the box had been tampered with. And so the fact that it had been authenticated by Baseball Card Exchange, you know, this was a big controversy. And their response was, you know, something like, in the 80s, the companies didn't have a lot of quality control, and, you know, this would happen every once in a while. A box like this would get out, and, you know, that explanation seemed like a bit of a reach to me. You know, I really don't know. I guess it's definitely possible. You know, I'm not an expert on this thing. I'm really not one to judge based on, you know, unless I know all the facts, and in this case, I just, you know, don't. I definitely think their reputation will take a bit of a hit. I mean, this is not their first, you know, slip up. They've had a couple big ones recently. I've used them before in the past, you know, quite a bit. I've sent them quite a few boxes to have authenticated, and I've always been very happy with the service, you know, and the value they added. But I don't know anybody personally there on any level, so I have no idea. You know, I can't speak to any of that sort of thing. Like I said, I think their reputation will take a bit of a hit. They're the distant leader in this space. There's really no other company that does this, so it'll be interesting to see if, you know, they quickly get over it, or if, you know, this sort of opens the door for another company to swoop in and maybe take some market share. I'm not sure. You know, one thing I found out from this story which I was kind of surprised, and I would sort of, I think it's a knock against them, is that they don't authenticate, or they don't guarantee their authentication. So, you know, they authenticate a box and say, hey, in our opinion, it's original. But if it turns out that it's not, that they don't do anything. I thought that was sort of, they should guarantee it. They're a big enough company to guarantee that. And, you know, I'm sure they get thousands and thousands of boxes or whatever it is a week, and once in a long while they're going to have one proved to be wrong. And yeah, they should have a guarantee which covers that, in my opinion. Gwydion44 wrote, big European fan here. Do you think that Fanatics' purchase of sports cards rights will make sports cards easier to purchase in Europe, especially NFL and baseball cards, which are hard to come by as of today? Yes, that would definitely be my guess. It's certainly my hope. I mean, Fanatics is a much more global company than, you know, Topps or Panini ever was, and I think one of the reasons they're buying the rights is they see an untapped market in Europe and Asia, where they could really grow the sports card market. That would be my guess. I guess I could be wrong, but that would be my guess. Mark wrote, I had good luck yard sailing this summer, landing an 86 Fleer Jordan in 3 or 3.5 shape and a set of 10 1986 Star Jordans. I know where to send the Fleer, but since PSA has started grading the stars, I'm wondering whether to try them or stick with Beckett. What does your Magic 8 Ball say? Well, first of all, congrats on your yard sailing. That's pretty cool. Both PSA and Beckett are completely reasonable options. You should send them to whichever one of those two companies you prefer. I personally would send them to PSA, but they're both completely good options. Dwight wrote, if you had a magic wand and could erase one thing from the hobby world, what would it be? For me, it would be the mentality that you have to overprice everything just to get a fair price. That's a good question. It would probably be something like just get rid of all the shadiness in the hobby, you know, dealers trying to lowball you or trick you into overpaying type of thing. It's a very small percentage of dealers who do it, but they do exist. I mean, the vast majority are going to treat you fair and are on the up and up, in my opinion. But yeah, there is a small percentage that doesn't. It just sort of makes everything worse for everybody, right? It drives people out of the hobby. You know, if this happens to you, you're sort of less likely to stick around. It also makes people less trusting of myself and dealers just naturally, right? I think, you know, if it happens to you once, you're going to sort of have the mentality that all dealers are out there to get you. But I like yours as well. Like, that's a thing that's really been going on lately. People way overpricing stuff, whether it's on eBay or, you know, at shows. I don't know if it's it's always been there, but I feel like it's gotten it more extreme lately. 2x, 3x times the value of cards is what they're listing it at. And, you know, this really makes it hard to get, you know, a negotiation going when cards are so overpriced. So yeah, that can be annoying at times. Zach wrote, we started hearing a lot of cards selling for six figures and just thousands of dollars. Who are actually buying these cards? Are they rich people, and what are they doing with the cards? I wonder, will this be an ongoing business? It almost makes you don't want to sell the stuff you have because it may be one day be worth a lot. When did this expensive card streak start, and what is causing these cards to be ridiculously high? So whenever someone asks a question like this, and it's a good question, I always try to compare it to art, which, you know, most people don't see the comparison at all at first. But, you know, why would somebody pay $100,000 for a baseball card? Well, why would somebody pay $100,000 or $100 million for a piece of art? Well, the piece of art, maybe there's a connection to the artist, maybe it's a famous artist, or maybe it's a connection to the time period, or maybe it's just a beautiful image. All this stuff can be said about sports cards. You know, maybe it's your favorite player, or maybe that card's of your father's favorite player, or your grandfather's favorite player, and maybe it's just a beautiful image. Maybe it's a historical, you know, significant thing for whatever reason. And so that's how I see it. And over the last 40 years, you know, it's not just, we haven't just been seeing high-end card sales in the last couple of years. They've been going on for decades. It's just slowly been going more and more. I mean, in the 80s, we saw, you know, our first 5-figure sale. And in the 90s, you saw your first 6-figure sale. And then in the 2000s, you saw your first 7-figure sale. And now we just had our first 8-figure sale. And this is just sort of how the high-end card market goes. I think over time, little by little, more and more people become interested in high-end sports cards. There's a lot more rich people than there ever has been in the world. So there's a lot more of a pool of people who can afford this stuff. And they just have, you know, a percentage of them have gravitated towards sports cards and remembering their youth and their father's youth and whatever it is. So I think that's sort of just the way it's sort of played out over the last, you know, few decades would be my explanation. Andrew wrote, you mentioned in a prior video that Auction of Champions is a site you've bid on and purchased cards from. There are frequently cards sold on that site that are graded by DGA, Diamond Authentic, and other smaller grading companies. Do you trust the authenticity of these graded cards sold through an auction site like this, or do you tend to avoid them and just stick with the larger established grading companies? So I personally would not buy a graded card that's not graded by one of the big four, PSA, Beckett, SGC, or CSG. You know, maybe there's some exceptions like an HGA or GMA here and there, but you know, for the most part, it's got to be one of the big four. But that's because I'm a reseller, and you know, cards graded by other companies, the slab really doesn't add any value to the card, so it doesn't really make sense for me to buy cards in other holders. Now, if it's like purely a PC card and you just want your card graded, probably a lot of these companies are totally legit. You know, the card's original and the grade they gave is totally reasonable, and maybe the slab looks nice or whatever, and it's not expensive. And you know, if it's purely a PC card, it might be a decent option. I certainly wouldn't buy like an expensive card in a holder outside of the big four. But yeah, if it's a $10, $20, $50 card, you're probably fine. If it's a PC card, again, you're not going to be adding any value really with the holder. But if it's a PC card, you're probably okay. Greg Carroll wrote, any tips on setting up at a show for the first time? I've been an avid collector for decades and somewhat part-time eBay seller for several years. Setting up at a 75 table show that's been around for 35 years. Aside from bringing mostly vintage stuff, enough change and an inventory log of what I have at the show. Anything else glaringly omitted by me? Yeah, so I've actually only set up at a show once this past summer at the Dallas show, so I don't have a lot of experience here. But one thing I'd say is, price all your stuff out up front. I did this at the Dallas show, but I've seen so many times a dealer who, dealers just don't have their stuff priced, and a customer walks up and they begin a negotiation, and it takes forever because they have to look up every card and price everything out, and it takes forever. And meanwhile, other customers have come and gone because they sort of lost interest. So that's one thing I would say. Price all your stuff out up front. DSS Sports Cards had two questions. One, are trains becoming obsolete? And second, what is the most successful flip you've ever had that was unexpectedly high return? So not sure what you're getting at with the trains thing. I mean, here in the Netherlands, trains are awesome. They're fast, they're cheap, they run every few minutes, they're comfortable, they're convenient. You know, way better to travel by train long distance than cars. So definitely not becoming obsolete here anyway. In terms of flips, you know, I'm just not a flipper. Like I buy collections. I don't buy singles looking to flip them. I buy collections. Collections usually don't provide much flipping opportunity. You know, I buy singles at shows. But when you're buying from a show from a dealer at a show, you're not getting like flipping stories out of that. You might be able to get a few, 10, 20% margins or something, but not something you can like flip for some huge profit. So yeah, I really don't have much in the way of flipping stories. During the pandemic, I was flipping a lot on ComC because soccer cards were going bananas and not everyone had figured that out. So I was buying a lot of soccer cards for $20 and, flipping them 3 weeks later for $80, that sort of thing. A lot of that, but no, I can't think of any like one big one that was like incredible, but yeah. So I don't have a much of a history with flipping. Chris wrote, don't you think there's a need for an unopened wax registry? I know PSA grades packs, but they don't do boxes, nor is there a registry to get an idea on how rare exactly a particular item is. It seems like it would be a good idea to be able to document the boxes from Baseball Card Exchange and RVP. Yeah, great idea. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, a registry for unopened wax, yeah, that would be great. That would solve a lot of problems, and certainly I hope somebody figures out how to start that up. Yeah, that would be a great idea. Michael wrote, and I finally got to meet Michael at the National, which was very cool. He asked, do you foresee a correction in ultra premiums that the highest grades currently command? I remember seeing on your channel that a PSA 10 Johnny Bench rookie had recently sold for 150 times what a PSA 7 had sold for. I get that a PSA 10 is much rarer, but 150 times. So, I mean, I'm really just not in the predicting game. I wouldn't foresee what you're suggesting happening, but, I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, in the past, the gap between PSA 10s and PSA 7s or, PSA 10s and PSA 9s has just gotten larger and larger and larger, little by little over time, and it's always sort of gone in that direction. So would it suddenly switch and come back and start changing back the other way? I mean, I wouldn't. I guess it's possible, but I wouldn't predict that. This one sent in by Ron. He wrote, curious what you would do with an Aaron Judge lot I recently purchased. It's a lot of 4 2013 Bowman Chrome rookies, all raw. It's base Bowman, blue Bowman Parallel, Bowman Chrome base, and Bowman Chrome Refractor. I'm all in for $208. Would you sell one and keep the rest and see if he breaks the American League home run record? And then sell the rest, sell them all since they're skyrocketing right now. Keep them all as long-term hold. The current selling values of them are around 25, 65, 90, and 200. If I sold the refractor, I would recoup my initial investment. I'm curious what your strategy would be in my situation. So I personally would just price them to sell now. I mean, to me, I don't play the predicting game. So to me, they're just as likely to go up as they are to go down. You could sell them now and they go way up and you missed out, or you could sell them now and they go way down and you dodged a bullet. So to me, that sort of evens out in the long run, but I would just price them to sell right now. If you wanted to play the game where you think there's a good chance they're going to skyrocket because he's about to break a record, and that's a totally reasonable way to play it, yeah, I would probably do something like sell one now, hold on to the other 3, and reevaluate 2 weeks from now. Maybe there's a lot more information in 2 weeks. He didn't hit any home runs and he's got no chance, or maybe he hit a bunch and now it's looking very likely, and then you can sort of reevaluate then. Aaron B., longtime friend of the show, asked, I think a lot of YouTubers would like some background info on how much a YouTuber with 50,000 subscribers can earn from videos a month. Secondary, I'm out of work and it doesn't look like I'll be able to go back anytime soon. What do you think would be the best way to profit about $400 a week from cards? I do breaks, not as much as I used to, but they lose money most of the time. Yeah, so the way YouTube ad revenue works is when your channel gets big enough, YouTube will start putting ads at the beginning of your videos and also at the end of your videos, and you can actually also have them in the middle. I usually select not to do that unless I have like a really long video, but almost never. But YouTube will put them at the beginning, and anytime you see an ad, you click on one of my videos and you see an ad pop up there before, that's an ad YouTube has chosen. But anytime you see that, I'm basically getting like a fraction of a cent for every view of that ad from that company via YouTube. It doesn't really matter how many subscribers you have. I mean, I have 55,000 subscribers, I think, which is a fair amount for a sports card channel, but that's not actually relevant in terms of revenue. The way revenue is it's based on the number of videos you put out and how many views they get. And I generally put out 4 videos a week, and on average maybe they get 10,000 views a piece or something like that. Some more, some less. So if you sort of add all that up, on average I get around $2,000 to $2,500 a month from YouTube ad revenue. It actually ranges quite a bit. Like last month I got very little That's because I was out of town, so I wasn't putting out many videos. But there are other times when I have a couple videos that sort of blow up, and the ad revenue goes way up. So that's sort of how that is. There's other ways to make money on the channel. I don't do a very good job monetizing that. There's lots of opportunities which I don't take advantage. I considered like a Patreon page for a while. I considered like doing merchandise. I get requests for promotions all the time, which I never take. The only things I do now are sponsorships of the high rollers and the regular rollers, and I get requests for those all the time. But I only take from companies I know really well and believe in. Greg Morris and Hoodies and Auction of Champions and Dynasty Breaks. I think those are the only 4 I've taken in the last year plus. But I could be putting promoting things in all my videos. I get requests for NFT promotions, game promotions all the time, but I just sort of figured that it's tough to balance. Like, it'd be really nice to get that extra money, but it would probably mean the viewer quality of my videos goes down. So I don't know what the balance is. Still something I'm sort of figuring out. For your second question, how to make money on sports cards, that's not something I could explain in here or in a video. That that would it took me many years to figure out how to sort of start making money in sports cards. So if you wanted something like, I definitely wouldn't do breaks. That's not gonna lead to profit at all unless you get really lucky. Maybe one idea would be start on COMC.com. Try to see, do a bunch of research on there, see if you can identify some singles that you feel are undervalued, buy them and see if you can, flip them for a small profit on the site. Very, very sort of easy way to get started, doing that. DZ Cards asked, as someone that has been investing dealing for a long time, how has the new wave of individuals buying and selling changed how you operate? How has your YouTube success changed how you operate? Yeah, it's a really good question. How did I change my strategy with all these new people entering the hobby and just a boom in the last few years? I don't, I was thinking about it. I don't think I really changed my strategy much at all. Certainly not like big picture stuff. I'm always making minor adjustments to my strategy, always, as I go. I think that's very important, recognizing what you're weak in, recognizing what's not working, and making minor tweaks here and there, always doing that. But I don't think I made any really big picture stuff. I've been in the hobby as a full-time dealer more than 10 years and as a collector 30 years. So it's not, I've seen all the ups and downs, and I'm very much go with the flow and just tweak things as you go to always slightly improve and long-term looking to. But yeah, I don't think I made any major changes. How has YouTube success changed the way you operate? Yeah, that one's been a significant change, completely unexpected. I've told the story. The reason I started the channel was we were going to be in Europe for 2 years. We had been here for 1 year, and I just missed cards. Like, I missed the card community. So I was like, oh, I'll start a YouTube channel and reconnect with the card community. And then the channel really did a lot better than I expected. And so it sort of became something else, which was, one of the aspects of the channel, which is so nice, is that people reach out to me and say, hey, I love your stuff. I'd love to sell you, my small collection. And this is just amazing because it takes a lot of the stress off finding inventory. Being in Europe, it's really hard to find inventory. So this is really, really valuable to me. I value this a lot. And it's really nice to find inventory that way, as opposed to sort of having to do the hustle at shows and things like that. So that's been a really nice change that the channel has brought upon. But that's it. Thank you, everyone, for all the great questions. Hope I answered everyone's question in full. And if not, feel free to leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to follow up. But I really appreciate it, and see you all again real soon. Thanks, everyone.